bodily injury or death. 20 Supreme Court Justice Cardozo, in the consequence of deadly force, deliberately means the act is intentional. Brenner. Justice Cardozo declared that the intent to kill is always deliberate within the meaning of law, unless the mind is so blind as to make the act more than automatic distinction much too vague. The presence of a sudden impulse said to be marked the dividing line with half the impulse be anything but sudden, yet the decision should be effective seconds may be enough. The dividing line sharp meaning is to be a dividing line. He said that it's intended to deliberate whenever the choice in the truth is all deliberate, the choice is involved in the hypothesis of the intent. Legal definitions of domestic violence are inadequate because they do not account for the totality of circumstances. Domestic violence is not a series of discrete events, but as a pattern of physical and mental violence. Turkheimer. Domestic violence is defined by both physical and non-physical manifestations. Power this non-controversial, the law remains impermeable and does not condemn, cannot remedy the harm of battery. Abuse of behavior is not series of discrete events and understanding of power. Then if power within the relationship goes beyond these instances, the woman lives with ongoing psychological abuse, experience continuous state of siege battery, economic coercion, stalking, and isolation, rather than the number of hits the battery survivor the dominant functions of the animated forms of private abusive behaviors. I value morality. The most fundamental tenet of morality is that human life is valuable. There's no single identifiable source of both life is valuable because we value it. Harris. What makes existence valuable? This life is not an account of value of life, but in discovering way of knowing when we're confronted with value of life is not the content of the individual. That's the capacity to give an account. If we value life for each individual consistent reasons, then each person has wanted to live, we've not know the reasons. All we know is that individuals have the reasons. So otherwise, what do you have in common? Our capacity to value our lives, those lives of others, however different our reasons for producing something to be. Respecting the ability of individuals to choose the end to which pursued values necessary, respect the worth of persons. That is a details of valuation relative, meaning individuals have the right to value their own lives about the choices of others. Levine. Allowing persons to choose a preference what is important allows them to pursue their own. They choose to pursue, allowing persons to show a preference for their own lives. To respect persons choose to stay in lives necessary for continuous persons choose appears may choose to preserve their own life. Means person may choose to preserve the choices that save their lives entails it is to everyone's advantage to accept the general policy that is morally permissible to allow persons to show preference for what is important to them. Thus, unless agents may have preferential treatment for their own lives, they would never be able to choose anything because they would be slaves to the preferences of others, which destroys value of life. They're sole restrictions because everyone has value, but if your interest or stake is the result of your own choice, you cannot have a right to value your life to maintain your freedom to choose because this was your choice in the first place. If everyone has a right to value their own lives but the lives of others, then they cannot be forced to sacrifice their own lives to give failing fair. This principle justifies the individual right to self-defense. Jonathan Kwong explains. The permission of self-defense is justified by the agent relative values for people and are required to sacrifice on behalf of others unless they voluntarily incur an obligation to do so. Each person has a powerful agent relative reason. This appeal to agent relative value is moral. And permission is not merely excuse. We are excused when we act in such a way we should not have been mitigating circumstances until they will be a difficult act. Morality requires agent relative consideration. Also, the boundaries if a child is drowning can be saved. Rescued only at the cost of becoming a paraplegic. Morality is not required to save the child since death is worse than becoming paraplegic. The only explanations that agent relative considerations have ultimate morality means just you cannot be expected to incur significant risk for your life to rescue. Morality cannot demand that you be killed if you have an engaged in a voluntary act which has the same effect. Morality cannot require you to sacrifice your life when you rightfully possess the means to save yourself. This price of their basic permission to kill in self-defense. Thus, if someone believes they reasonably believes they are forced to choose between their life and the life of another person, it is morally permissible to give greater value to their own life. And independently of agent relative value, when evaluating whether reason left to take harm exists, we need to consider the situation from the perspective of the victim, not an objective observer. Donovan and Wildman explain. Focus on the reasonableness of defense beliefs subjective approach. In the case of rape, victim means the fact to shift the reason rape, and in fact could be taken into account reasonable man and the abject likely to fear, not likely to fear death from someone who encounters a public place. However, a woman who has been raped, who is still in shock, has been threatened against likely to fear bodily injury, which she encounters him even when she's carrying a loaded gun. Therefore, the apparatus to show that victims of repeated domestic violence reasonably believe that their lives are put in danger by their abuser. My contention is that victims of domestic violence believe their lives are in danger as a result of abuse. First, repeated domestic violence is characterized by its relationship with complete domination. Victims of domestic violence must always be concerned by the extent to which their abuse of relative rights, all rights, continued privileges, based on whether or not your abuser decides to deny all rights. Silva and Ludwig explain. The lack of respect for human dignity is a core problem. Domestic violence person not been himself to harm someone without his views of possessing with individuals have certain rights to life and safety, especially in their own homes. But domestic violence kills and robs the victims of their lives and safety. The home becomes a battlefield where the victims do not know what the next guarding or reform will take in order to escape the relationship which abusers see. All victims see no alternatives. They act in self-defense motives. Saunders 1. The facts associated with homicide supports self-defense escalation. Women feel that exhaust all their alternatives and seek help. Facts associated with homicide centered around men's behavior, including frequency, abuse, severity, physical killing, intoxication, national family bonds. I found out how to use weapons were highly associated with their actual use. Words for wives threats or for wives threats were not, which suggests premeditation and intent to control in men and a self-defense motive in women. Second, LGBT communities are likely to experience domestic violence in heterosexual communities supporting potentially viable self-defense claim. Bricker. Intimate violence is prevalent in gay lesbian communities and the heterosexual community. Gay men and lesbians are likely to carry encounter violence in their relationships, like the case of heterosexual battered women. The heterosexual battered women believe the conduct supports a self-defense claim. Extra, the self-defense in these cases is morally permissible because we put ourselves in the shoes of the victim of repeated domestic violence. We could reasonably assume that our lives are broadly integrated. We are risk forcing victims to wait until the lives are immediately others does not conform to any reasonable standard of self-defense. Moriarty. The DOT does not evaluate the threat of terrorist attack based on the only immediate circumstances. The determination of legitimate self-defense must be made from totality of circumstances related to more last considerations of limited domestic violence. We should not separate the killing from past behavior determine whether the threat was imminent. In fact, traditional standards of self-defense are intolerable, so more severe responses to minor violence and subjective hands are preferable because they take into account relevant considerations about the victim. Saunders 2. Criminal law recent court decision clarified the victim is justified when he believes that he is in immediate danger of the force that's necessary. Women's social conditioning have come to be recognized as an important factor. Jurors consider they have stated that women suffer from lack of means of developing skills necessary to repel a man son. If the presence of a 5'5" woman using a crutch must repel a 6'2" intoxicated man without weapons, violates the equal protection of the law. Therefore, bad women are justified using more severe violence than their attackers. Third, the justification force preemptively diffuse the prior hierarchy of injustice domestic violence. Lance Stell. If the law permits citizens to use lethal force to protect attackers around those who face long-abiding victims who are not otherwise helpless, this may deter aggressive from attacks that could have been otherwise unattractive. On the other, the law forbids themselves potential attackers to consume their potential victims pose no threat. This leaves cost of attacks only marginally greater than those who are risk already paying. And empirically, domestic violence is deadly, so deterrence has a significant impact. Right. 8.8 million children today severe physical violence abused by the guardians. These figures are conservative since that may be incorrectly diagnosed accidental domestic violence injuries, or at least as severe as 90% of violent felonies each year. 2 million women suffer abusers, isolated from family and friends, and poverty makes retreat financial impossibility. Some society only takes to kill their abusers. Furthermore, any subsexual relationship are seen as a challenge to authority, which will escalate violence, increasing the risk of life. Coons. The first moisture separation arguments about the trigger response because of domestic violence, smart crack control, type of gags may be considered as being Kuhn's 2 rights. 75% of assaults occurs when the abused party separated, 45% of murders of women arise over menstruation or stage of women or soccer separated, 25 times more likely to be attacked this person legal refugees are unlikely to work the ultimate down, 70 power relationship between the abuser and abuse, which means likely to violence even higher. I didn't read the choice. In fact, in 90% of cases, alternatives such as calling the police, leaving or seeking public protective agencies failed, and women ended up in Wimberley rights. The necessity of self-defense created by solid pressure to command of women's states have been even discounting from methodological objectives to the percent of women. 90% of women killed by husbands who were stalked and previously called the police failed to get help. Even every time only reports the perception that nothing can happen. This demonstrates societal preference for idealization of women. Protective agencies must move upstream against attitudes that again marital bonds form require that they deserve this pressure for women to stay in her community given no other choice. Finally, even all required to self-defense or method use of deadly force means means any reasonable conception because 92% of self-defense killings do not take place when the abuser is sleeping in. 91% in confrontational settings grouse. A comprehensive study of the appellate case from 1981 said that female defense claimed to have killed their abuser domestic partner in self-defense. Estimated 20% of cases were non-confrontational, 8% involving sleeping victims. A recent study found that 9% were committed in non-confrontational settings.
Keep this in order. Right?
Yep.
Sir Kwong evidence talks about a syllogism where there's a baby dying, and thus that is a reason why we have agent relative value. Like, where's the warrant?
Wait, no,
logical
that's
argument?
not the argument.
Well, then explain to me what the argument is. There are a large portion of the
Kwong
card does
or
pertain
in Kwong or
to
what?
saving a baby. In
Like,
Kwong.
What is the argument in Kwong? The argument is
I'm asking what the warrant in for Kwong that justifies why we need to look to agent relativity to
That-
justify permission.
That is not the argument that talks about agent relativity.
Your
It
argument
says
talks
if we talk
if
about
everyone,
agent,
okay, well, essentially it's talking about
the
agent
Kwong
relativity.
evidence says if we accept agent relativity, then we have an
Right,
individual
my argument
self-defense.
is where is the warrant as to why agent relativity
Right,
makes the
that's the
self-defense?
Levine evidence. It justifies agent
So there
relativity.
is no, then what is the utility of the Kwong evidence, Daniel?
It justifies self-defense based on agent relative value.
Right, my question is, what is the justification that leads
For
from
self,
agent relativity
your
to
question
self-defense?
was what was the justification for agent relativity?
No, well my
Those are
question
two
is,
different things.
regardless of what you thought my question is, my question now is, what is the justification for agent relativity to self-defense?
Okay.
It's
right.
in the Kwong evidence.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sure.
then what is it?
Sure. So, it says that you cannot sacrifice your life on behalf of others because agent relative value says that you
Right,
can
so
prefer your life
You
over
assume
other
that agent
people's
relative
lives.
value is true to justify self-defense.
I don't assume it's true. I justified in the Levine evidence. That's what I'm trying to explain
Okay,
to you.
but so then,
Like two cards
right, so
justify
can you
two
then
different
just,
arguments.
finish explaining what the warrant is between agent relativity and
Sure.
self-defense.
So if agent relativity is true, that means you can prefer your life over the life of another person, which means if somebody is
Right.
attacking you, you can prefer saving yourself to killing them.
Why?
So,
Just because
because
your life
values
is
agent
bad.
relative. Because if it's
Okay,
relative,
so
you
your
value
argument is
your
that
life
we should
above
look to the
other lives.
perspective of the victim and what the victim would subjectively want in
That
that
is a
situation,
different argument,
correct?
but yes.
But that is essentially what the offense and link back to the standard is. It's like, what does the
There's
victim
like-
want to the situation, right?
Yeah.
So
sure.
what pieces
I mean, there are
of
other
evidence
cards
are
in the
offense?
contention that would
What
lead to
pieces
other
of evidence
things.
are offense and link back to the standard?
Okay. So, let's go through them.
There are like a ton. Are all
Right.
of them offensive?
Not necessarily back to the standard, right?
Okay,
So first Ludwig talks about how victims never know when the next battering occurs, which means they feel like there are no other alternatives. Then Saunders 1 says that women act out of self-defense motives because they think there are no alternatives. Then there's a general card about LGBT, how this can also apply there.
Wait, so can you just tell me why these offense link back to your standard so I
Right,
can
so I
start on
told
my
you
flow? Just
Ludwig.
card names.
Sure. Ludwig,
Okay.
Saunders 1. Bricker's just a general card, it's not offense, it's just about
Right,
LGBT.
okay.
Moriarty.
Well, okay, so let's talk about the Moriarty evidence. Your Moriarty evidence is drawing an analogy between self-defense victims and the deterrent
Sure,
of
so it
defense.
says that we should
Why
talk
is that
about
applicable?
Because it says that unless we look to the totality of circumstances, we can't understand how the victim feels or believes about things.
So are the totality of circumstances that the DoD deals with on a regular day-to-day basis
No,
the same that a
the-
victim would deal with in deadly force situations?
No, that's why it's an analogy, not like...
Right, my
same
question
thing.
is why does the analogy apply?
Because the argument is that when there's a terrorist attack, like a threat,
Right.
it's the same
Why
type
do
of
terrorist
idea.
attacks apply to deadly
Because
force
a
situations
terrorist
for
attack
victims?
on a country is analogous to an abuser's attack on a
Okay,
female
so
victim because...
Why?
So the warrant is that because the DoD does not make a determination based on immediate circumstances because there are other
Okay.
concerns that matter. So like the totality of
Okay.
circumstances surrounding a terrorist attack can also
So what
apply
else is
as a-
offense? Is Saunders 2 offense?
Yes, because it says that traditional
Okay,
standards of
Stout.
self-defense are bad.
The stout?
Yeah,
What are
it's an
traditional
impact.
standards of
It's an
self-defense?
impact that says that it'll
Why, wait,
deter
why is that
abuse.
offense? I don't defend traditional standards of self-defense.
Well then, wait. You mean Saunders? This is Saunders 2.
Yeah.
Oh sure. Yeah, it is. It's an argument that says that like proportionality and necessity don't matter.
Okay, so it's
Because
not
the-
offense, it's a
Well, there's offset.
central
It
argument.
is often because it says that the victim believes that he is in immediate danger. Right.
Okay, your Saunders 2 is dangerous. Stell is offense. Power hierarchy, why does that matter?
It just says that it deters aggressors. This isn't offense back to agents believing things. It's just that this will help.
So it's not.
Objectively deter. Not under my standard.
Okay, is the next evidence right?
Coons.
Oh, Coons, sorry.
Well, there's right that gives an impact of like how
Okay,
many
is
people.
Coons offense?
Yeah, it is, because it says that when you try to that when people try to separate, violence goes up, so they don't see like separation as an option. So they believe that there's no other option.
Is Turkheimer offense?
It's just I mean, it depends on what you run, but it's not offense back to the standard. It's a definitional argument, right?
Okay.
Like I don't have offense.
How do you define deliberate? Is it just intention?
Yeah, that's the Brunner
And the
evidence.
thesis of your position is that, like, in the heat of the moment, they have the ability to respond, right? Because they're like.
I will defend whatever you want me to defend. I say that both.
Well, how
I
does
said
your
both
offense-
apply.
How does your offense link back to a
So-
definition of deliberate that is not the heat of the moment?
Okay, sure. So the first load of evidence says that in a domestic violence relationship, women never know when they're going to be attacked next. So even if it is not in the heat of the moment, they still think there are another options. So that is one example of how my offense would link back to a different conception of deliberate. But I will not like exclude arguments to either one, I guess.
But you defend domestic violence as both physical and non-physical, correct?
Yeah, the Turkheimer evidence says how it's emotional and like psychological and physical.
I have one left. Can you,
109.
yeah, take this back. It's gonna go,
Is it in order? Yeah.
no, is there any way you could put it in order? for
Yeah, I
the
can do that too.
It's gonna go 2 off, AC.
Can you hand me stuff?
It's all gonna be on computers, like I jumped to after the speech.
That's fine. That's fine.
Hold on. Would this help you?
Oh, thank you. I'll try.
Okay.
Thanks.
Hang on.
What? I tried.
Is that right? Yep.
A interpretation, domestic violence is physical violence or abuse, Princeton Burnett defines. Domestic violence, physical abuse directed towards your partner. Violation, his definition of Turkheimer evidence defines physical and non-physical. Standards, limits. One they explain limits the term domestic violence is a subset of domestic abuse. Rohrbaugh. Violence is behavior, action on basis of power, dominion, controlling, and intimidating action, including violence within the context of power dynamic, causing psychological and physical harm. This goes turns to the gap between defend a combination of physical and non-physical violence each independently that I can't anticipate which interpret the alpha choose giving them unstable gravity on the alpha advocacy. There are 2 internal linked defenders, they excuse pure path, the alpha always have preference specificity. Advantage of B, the alpha choose whichever interpretation dies negative most ground against her position. Second, B explodes limits, kills that qualitative ground. Next position to argue restricted psychological violence denies and moral constraint arguments because the alpha claimed the victimized agent was irrational, this denies that key steps in the ground that avoids morally apologetic trivialization or denial of domestic violence legitimacy as a form of abuse. The voter's fairness. Debate in the cafeteria causing equal opportunity to sense when Brown fair to give issue because I'm for arguments to the rest of the content around voting out there else concerns because you only on 2 there, no. After to get out of shell because you forced me to use time running it. Next up. I value morality, moral arguments just flow from absolute reason and non-reason basis circular. C.S. Lewis explains. One might say there happens in inference to be true, but in inference in the telephone trial, one is given accountable without an inference which suggests that they are not real. Insense in all the research turns to be one more inference and fire of reasoning and doubt you cannot try to establish it by reasoning and proof there are no proofs nonsensical there is proof there are proofs reasonings are starting proof there can be no question either attacking or defending it if treating it as a mere phenomenon you put yourself outside there's no such way except begging the question of getting inside again. Thus moral claims are only logically coherent if they derive from reason and any reason to act must be capable of being universalized. A. There's no reason to reject an action for one person while making sufficient guidance to the actions of another. If ethics erase the reason of any state or affairs or actions concern is irrelevant because they don't appeal to practical reason of humans. That's embedded clash with the AC framework of agent relativity. B, in order to be a willable reason, must be universalized. When I act towards a good, I do so use my practical reason, which is realized many people. So I can judge that doing X is good. It must be possible for anyone else to judge that by doing X would be good since they also present practical reason. Further, this gives rise to rejection of arbitrariness since first, arbitrary reasons can't be universalized because they are nothing more than unjustified exceptions to universal rules. Since arbitrariness allows moral rules to be applied randomly, it renders all moral rules and concepts flux, therefore incapable of being universalized. Second, arbitrariness allows moral rules to be applied on circumstances that are inconsistent with the reason judgment because judgment is made a posteriori rather than a priori. Therefore, the standard is rejecting arbitrariness. Prefer the standard because first, arbitrariness ensures morality's guide to the ability to guide action against rules arbitrarily can apply in some circumstances. Not only arbitrariness allows rules to come actual destroying morality's ability to normally discern right from wrong action. Second, arbitrariness opens the door for moral atrocities. So the reason why things like slavery are justified is because people are viewed differently based on arbitrary factors like sex or skin color. Arbitrariness allows equal people to be valued differently based on insignificant factors. So arbitrariness is the root cause of oppression. AC impacts creates. If we look to agent relativity, I control the internal link because agents would never will that they themselves be oppressed or victims of trivialization. And I contend that the use of deadly force in the resolution is arbitrary. First, the gravity of the harm caused by deadly force mandates some sort of legal process or check system to ensure non-arbitrary application of deadly force. This is why we don't give the death penalty to innocents because there are checks to ensure that only those who are guilty are punished. This does not deny the fact that deadly force might be a legitimate form of self-defense. Rather, since there should be legal checks in that use of self-defense in order to ensure that it is not used in a non-arbitrary manner, which the AC does not defend. However, permitting the use of deadly force gives the victim full discretion over whether or not the abuser is deserving of punishment and what degree they deserve because the victim can decide to use deadly force themselves rather than going through checks like the legal system. This makes use of deadly force arbitrary because there are no checks to ensure that punishment is deserved. Second, proportionality is necessary to constrain an action being non-arbitrary because absent proportional limits that we can unjustified kill a person for insignificant crimes. I assume the free negotiation story with the I control the internal link to the abuse story because the unarbitrary punishment is the logic by which the abuser used to justify hurting his victim. However, the use of deadly force is inherently not proportional because the victim while suffering is still alive, whereas killing the offender terminates their life. So deadly force is disproportionate response and therefore arbitrary. And third, in order to be non-arbitrary, an action must be absolutely necessary. Otherwise, there's no justified reason for choosing one option over another because either option would have sufficed. However, the use of deadly force is not necessary because there are always other options the victim takes to often victims kill their abusers while sleeping or otherwise not engaging in physical violence. I.e., per the AC analysis, the use of deadly force is not necessary because the victim could have taken other options. AC. First, starting on the Turkheim evidence, he says that we shouldn't look to the legal definition. Right? That is not a reason to not look to the definition of the treatment because it is printed word, which is just a lexical definition of how it is used in the English language, which is meant to be a reason it is not. He looked to it. Additionally, this is the reason why we prefer the analysis of the definition because it is a colloquialism, which is the basis for everyday conversation, which means it's the best way to interpret the resolution because it controls the internal link to predictability. Additionally, if he tries to extend the Turkheim evidence as leverage on T debate, he has to give some sort of theoretical reason, not some sort of framework-based reason as to why you have to look to it because the Turkheim evidence as it is right now only has an impact as to why we need to look to the retaliatory circumstances for the victim as for his framework. Then on the framework, as an overview. One subjectivity always requires objectivity, media criteria, and external to the agent's relative desires in order to judge the moral permissive of an action. Ben Moshe. We didn't reason external agency until you have a scale which is 5 pounds off. You do not know this. Every time you place a 10-pound object in the scale shows 50 pounds. To know when your scale was 5 pounds off, you would need another scale. This justification external to works in the first scale. Likewise, agency, a criterion external to their agency that will serve as a yardstick for successful action because the limited scope of our agency. This has two implications. First, it's reason to reject the frame because he's missing an internal link in order to look to a standard. He's logical consistency. Second, it leverages the NC because the arbitrary standard is the objective standard by which we can judge subjective concerns and agent relative value, which means that if we value agent relative, you have to look to the arbitrary standard first because it gives you the objective basis for it. Second, permitting agents to do whatever they subjectively think is justified is flawed because it makes necessary moral rules optional. Even if the question of self-defense should be answered subjectively, they set a bad moral precedent, which is the reason to look to objectivity. Cost of farmers. Role claims have an important feature. They report to be non-optional and apply to agents independently. The agent's bonus consider agent a strong desire to murder despite the fact of murdering or fill. The agent's desire most would hold that the agent is non-murder, but internalism and difficulty generally that conclusion. If internalism is true, there will only be an accident that most of us have reason to murder. If we have different motives, we have reason to murder. That conclusion is impossible. This means our framework needs a net moral harm because they establish a core precedent for morality. Cost of farmers cites the example of murder, which means that even if self-defense requires subjectivity for killing whole scale, we must look to objective rules. They agree that life is valuable as per agent relativity, so you have to reject the framework. Next. Overview on the contention level. In order to be consistent with subjectivity of the agent, the resolution must be in the agent's future well-being. Perfect. Subjective is an objective disagreement. We have evidence to try and promote our future well-being. Since possible not to prove our future well-being, subjective views imply that most of us act this way. But victims use deadly force set up in jail, which harms their future well-being. Callahan. For the overwhelming majority of battle women, homicide arrests for the first continued interrogation or jail for any confusing offer traumatized for recent being their lethal actions. Women report that confinement in county jail was more trying than subsequent confinement in state prison. One of current criticism that arises from their jail time is the use of prescription drugs ordered by the jail medical staff. Shaw reports that use of psychotropic medication is common throughout most correctional institutions and functions as a form of social control. This is the reason why if you look at the subjective interest of agents, they would not use deadly force because that would lead to them being put in jail, which is the net worst impact as I say by the Shaw, which is comparative. Then, go to the Saunders evidence. He says there are no offs, but he's not doing any sort of comparative analysis as to what the victim actually wants. My evidence indicates they do not choose deadly force because even if there is no alternative, the alternative jail will be seen as worse. Additionally, off the Saunders evidence, turn. Victims say with their abusers if subjectivity matters, they believe the consequences of leaving outweigh the abuse. Davies away. Leaving an abusive partner is not guarantee safety and raise and otherwise leaving can destroy any chance of financial security, loss of home, health, and care, or job before a victim decides to she weighs all the consequences of each victim will also make decisions in the context of their life. Many victims leaving makes their lives dangerous for those in poverty. Leaving is not a viable option because the right combination of life generated and battle generated risk. This means control the internal link into the age and relative value of life because the age and relativity matters. Many victims would choose to stay with their abusers because of the impacts of life that occur if they enter into poverty because of lack of financial security, which is the reason why I control the internal link on that level. Then go to the Moriarty evidence. This is talking about the DoD. He gives no reason why the analogy would apply, so don't let him use extend his offense. And then the Saunders 2 evidence. First, I'm not defending any sort of the standard of the average standard of self-defense, so this does not apply to my advocacy. Second, it doesn't apply to moral law, which is the arbitrariness standard. I said you don't let him extend standard 2 with link to the next speech. Then on Stell, this is not offense back to standard, don't let him extend it. Then on the Coons evidence. This is just the reason why you have to look to the negative term about blah, blah, blah. I try to separate leads to increase in violence. That means that I control the internal linkage to loss of life because if victims stay with their abuser, they often have the agent relative belief that will lead to more insecurity, which means that even if facts indicate that they might die for their abuser, the fact that the agent believes from their subjective interest that they should stay with them is no reason to look to the negative. For a second, there's no reason there's not an option that they can't have to use.
Okay. Before we start, can I see the theory and the NC?
Would you like me to jump into you or?
No, I'll just take a while.
Okay.
Can you show me everything else?
Yeah, here, let me put it in a document for you, so it's easier. Don't start your code.
Sure.
And then I'll put it on the trash so you can look at it.
Sounds great.
Do you want all the turns over to the app too?
Yep. Actually, no, I don't want the stuff. Yeah.
The document's going to be called For Daniel.
I just need a laptop. Just put it in the document. I don't need to.
No, it's already on flash drive. That way it's easier for both of us.
For sure.
I'm going to throw it in now. So.
Oh, here we go. For Daniel.
Yes, For Daniel.
Okay.
The only Daniel. Oh, that's not true. You can have it too if you want to.
Alright, so your T interpretation of domestic violence is only physical, right?
Yes. That's what the interpretation
Okay.
is.
Does the WordNet definition specifically exclude non-physical violence?
Yes, and the analysis in the standards would go on to further why
Okay.
it excludes. My argument is not necessarily exclusionary, but rather that
Wait,
domestic abuse is a separate term of art, which is what includes domestic violence and in the form of physical and non-physical violence, which is the reason why domestic violence is specified in the resolution only refers to physical violence. If we were to talk about non-psychological violence, then the resolution would speak to the question of domestic abuse, which is a separate concern.
Okay.
So it's a subset argument.
Alright, cool. Alright. Then let's talk about this second one.
The second,
Yeah, what's the second reason on theory?
the second argument.
Okay, actually first, what limits does this really explode, right? Like what does this prevent
The
you
limits
from
that,
doing?
first of all, there's a potential abuse claim in the first voter that also would apply maybe in this round.
Is there any
Second-
substantive abuse?
Yes, the second argument is definitively substantive.
Okay.
It talks about how the neg positions are already restricted, giving you access to psychological violence, and as a neg moral constraint argues that the AF will claim that the victimized agent was irrational.
Wait, how is that?
or things
I'm
like
not
that.
saying that they're irrational, so that's also potential abuse claim, right?
No, my argument is that, but it's a abuse in this round, as in I could have
Wow.
run side constraint arguments.
Right, but I'm not saying that they're irrational.
Well,
so
in
how
the
am I-
AC you
you
might
did run a
not-
psych constraint
Wait,
argument.
in the AC you might not take a stance about whether or not they are rational or not, but that doesn't mean that the abuse is
Right, so
potential,
it is-
because the definition
Wait.
could be used as a link to
Right, that's
Okay,
potential
fine,
abuse. I could use
yeah.
the like.
Well, no, I would
come on,
say
no,
that.
come on, like this is potential abuse. Like this is not like I
I
did
mean,
not
sure,
do
if
anything.
you want to go for potential abuse, is not a
Okay,
problem. We can have that debate.
I'm just clarifying like what.
I mean,
what
I
you're
still
trying to
think
do.
that there are reasons why in this round there are arguments I can make about why there might be actual abuse, right? Because you can.
So did you make any? Like what is the?
I'm saying that the Turkheimer evidence could have been a reason, would have been a reason why you could delink out of the NC, right? The NC is reactive. I shouldn't read a position that I know then you would have awesome link turned down
Should
on.
this not like answer my arguments on Turkheimer?
What do you mean? Like, I'm conceding to you that the warrant is potential abuse. Like, if you get into the nitty-gritty of why potential abuse is not a voter, then I will make arguments as to why the potential abuse I specifically talk about it could have had like potential implications specifically in this round, right? It's not just like I am solving for like the norms of the activity, right? It's not just like I'm the hero of debate. It's this could have happened in this round. Also, to clarify about you saying I read a constraint, the argument is distinct, right? The constraint I read potentially would fall under the bad qualitative ground that I isolate in the T show. I mean, we'll see what happens when I say in the 2-1R, but like, just to explain. The constraints being isolated there are not the ones that are being read in the NC speech.
And your standard is a comparative?
To yours? Yeah, I make a lot of comparison.
No. Can I compare, what do you mean?
Yes,
objective?
oh, yes, oh, yeah. Sorry, I thought you meant like, do I do framework analysis? If you prove your punishment is not arbitrary, that is sufficient, right?
Okay,
It's
sure.
by no means a nib.
Alright. Alright, 24. Alright, starting on the primary evidence, the AC, then going to T, and then back to the AC.
Should I get a separate piece of paper for T?
I don't know, probably not. Ready? Okay. Extend the term evidence legal definition domestic violence or not because under account of totality of circumstances domestic violence are not a series of discrete events but a pattern of physical mental violence created as I power control. My counter-interpretation, go to the T. My counter-interpretation includes both physical and non-physical violence, specifically in term evidence so that it's defined by both physical and non-physical manifestation power you prefer on the arguments about like the on the limits arguments. You can further Turkheim evidence on this question because it says specifically defines the distinction between both physical and non-physical manifestation power, how the law has been inadequate. His argument does not distinguish between the two, it just says that it's physical, but it does not say that it is not non-physical, which means it does not take a stance on excluding a specific part of one, just describes one part of it. My argument specifically differentiates between the two. He's going to say that the Orwell argument says that there's a difference between violence and abuse, but that there's no reason why that difference is significant. Topic my topic shows that this is just violence general solution for real. The violence general. Also, these arguments are all potential abuse, potential abuse. One, there's no way to verify that I'm actually abusing the right. He can just make infinite amount of arguments. Two, he can just make infinite amount of arguments about potential abuse. That's various bottom where I'm never going to be able to make any answers to arguments. He always ran T violations or I was going to be linking and have a risk bottom. 3, for reasonability on T because 1, potential abuse, but now I'm overwhelmed because I have there's 2 to 1 time to the next speech, which is any potential abuse arguments that he's mutable influence. So it also you damn I think you default reasonability on T anyway, so you should go check out on theory here. Then go to AC at the top on pairs. Except Harris evidence that the most fundamental attempt of human life is valuable. There's no single identifiable source of human life is valuable because this is not objective rule. It says life is always valuable. We just have different age and relative reasons for valuing life. So this case, out of all the arguments these are reading on the AC about like the correspondence evidence, the subject of the arbitrary argument, never been Notion evidence, something I gave a cite to him for, which means it's just talking about an answer towards guardian conceptions of agency. This is not what I'm writing. My argument is that life is agent relative. It is just life is always valuable. It's just we have different reasons for valuing life. So in instances where our lives conflict, we have to be able to deal with morality conserves a guide to action based on the Levine evidence. Is that if we be able to choose to prioritize our lives over the lives of others. Is also in it. Answers back his argument on the NC about how the morality serves a guide to action and functions as office because the only way that he can act is if we give preferential treatment of our own lives because we would otherwise never be able to choose anything because we would be slaves to preferences of others. So we have to have very relative value in this. And just remember, my point's very specific on the 7th. The subjectivity argument doesn't matter because it's an objective value of life. It's just we have different reasons for valuing it. Then second, he says the correspondence says we have different reasons for value. That we have to have like different motives, but the fact that the morality cannot serve as guide to action in the first place corresponds to just talking about internals. Then Kwong. Except the Kwong evidence principle justifies the individual's right self-defense, but everyone has the right to value the rights of the lives of others, and they cannot before sacrifice their lives to kill belief. He concedes the Kwong evidence. Then it says the Waldman evidence, the anomaly Waldman evidence says independently of racial relative value. Then we have value whether reasonable expectation harm exists. We still need to consider the situation from the perspective of the victim, not the objective observer. That he's conceding that evidence. That means it's not irrelevant whether they're objectively legal alternatives or whether objectively there aren't legal alternatives. It's just about what the victim believes. He's 100% conceding 7. Don't let him extend arguments about like embedded clash or anything like that because he's not actually applying anything dominant and Waldman. So independently of whether I win that agent relative value is good or bad, it is still we should still legally take a position from the subjective perspective. Then go to the contention. Saunders 1. Except in the order of safe relationship, which we the victims see no alternatives, they act on the self-defense motive because they don't see anything. This links back to the AC often. That means that I win right now. This often links back to none of his terms apply, but that even if you think some of his terms apply, go to the Moriarty evidence, or actually not Moriarty, Saunders 2. Except the traditional standards of self-defense are intolerable instead of more severe response amount of violence to stands preferable because they take into account relevance consideration. That means you can proportionality is not concerned because you can use more severe violence. That is the direct answer to the proportionality argument on arbitrariness. This is also an answer to the necessity argument because the necessity argument is about a victim. The standard law, the legal standard is that when the victim believes he is in any danger. So the necessity argument is based on the subjective consent to the case of this also takes out the arbitrariness argument about the law because the law says that if you believe that something is happening, that is the legal interpretation. Then go to Kuhn's. Except the Kuhn's evidence, the next sex relationship likely be seen as challenge to authority, which escalates violence. This means that there's actually more violence when you leave the relationship. So it's bad. This is going on with Davis evidence. Davis evidence says that, Davis evidence says that leaving is not an option because financial arguments. But that is my argument. My argument is that you cannot leave because of financial reasons. But if you kill your abuser, that at least provides some sort of hope of going back to your family or going back to some other instance. And then go to the Krauss evidence because that even if self-defense have to be proportional or permissible, 92% of instances are in the middle of a fight when the husband like pulls out a gun. Then that is an immediate proportional. That means any notion of arbitrariness that turns back to the negative case because arbitrariness is actually worse because the police never does anything and is always arbitrary.
Do you have the potential abuse arguments written down?
On my flow.
Yeah, obviously okay, flow. Sure, a block. So the first one was infinite regress, right? Then the second one was prefer reasonability. What's the warrant?
No, the second one was infinite regress.
So what was the first one?
There's no way to like verify potential abuse.
Okay. Then the third one was default to reasonability, go check out.
There's times Q, go check out wherever investing.
Okay. T, A, C, N, C. Actually, sorry, T, N, C, A, C. Starting on the reasonability debate. Ready? There'll be an overview first. Daniel's making a lot of arguments about why you should gut check after the affirmative look to reasonability without actually answering back the abuse story in terms of the theory show, which means even if you're buying the potential abuse is not a vote of the fact that the abuse story has gone 100% conceded as reason why it's no longer potential abuse and that it's empirically verified, which will answer back the majority of his claims about why potential abuse is not a vote or why you have to look to reasonability. The fact that he's also extending a counter-interpretation with those sort of standards linking back to is another reason why you air and egg on the theory debate, because I'm giving you an interpretation with clear standards linking back, but his argument is on short-timer is only that he just solves for the abuse and that there's no sort of competition. He's doing comparison without external offense linking back to it, which is the reason why you don't vote for the affirmative. But now on the line, when I go to the reasonability, his first argument is that there's no way to verify the potential abuse. So one is conceding the standard of the debate, which means that it is verifiable in the round. Second, there's no impact to lack of verification. If I'm making potential abuse claim, that's just a norm-setting argument for debate. The fairness voter does not preclude, and he has not contested the fairness voter in the last speech. Then, his second argument on infinite regus. One, definitions check back infinite regus. So I've typed the definitional basis for my topicality argument. I also have to have some sort of abuse story to check back theory argument. Second, T checks back, because I can only make T arguments based off of words that are used in the resolution, which means there aren't infinite arguments. And three, the most devastating argument that this is a potential abuse claim, which puts me in a double line. Either A, you look to response on potential abuse, and you have to look at the fact that there could be infinite things under potential abuse, or you reject it because he's relying on potential abuse thing in the first place. I am not making infinite theoretical claims. I'm making one specific claim about potential abuse, which means that he is relying on potential abuse internal warrant in order to justify the answer. It's the reason why you accept the legitimacy of the vote in the first place. Then on his third argument, I default to reasonability. First, the fairness voter answers back and says the debate is competitive to across the equal opportunity for both sides to win. Not fairness is a gateway issue because unfair arguments to the rest of the common round voting on theory. All is first, because you only own two there, which means there's no average to get out of the shelf first round time running. This is not specify whether or not the abuse has to occur in the round. Just said that we need to rectify abusive strategies before you answer anything back. Second, there's no reason why you have to gut check after when he's conceding the standards of the theory debate, so he doesn't get to go for the gut check argument. Three, he is not answering the abuse story, which is another reason why he can't gut check out. The gut check argument is when you are winning comparative offense under the reasonability debate, which is the reason why you might be fair. That's the reason you vote for him. Fourth, he says that he's over-investing, but there's no impact to why over-investment matters for the affirmative. That's his fault for lack of strategy. There's no reason why you vote for another theory debate. Also, reasonability is bad. One, recently invited judge intervention. The judge is the ultimate arbiter because they make the decision. I can't predict what a judge thinks to disadvantage discourse theory. Second, reasonability creates a race to the bottom, which means I control the internal link to the infinite regress and motivates victors using increasing unfair strategy. You get away with them by really playing defense on theory, which is what he's doing in this round. That is clear actual abuse, which is the reason why if you are not looking to if you're looking to no potential abuse, I still win because of the fact of the abuse that he's running on the answers to theory. Three, reasonability just begs question their interpretation. I'm winning. If I'm winning, offense proves they are unreasonable. So even A under reasonability, the debater with the most offense wins, and B, it collapses competing interpretation because the debater has to win their counter interpretation first. This is a reason why it's especially important on topicality, because the ballot asks you to vote for who did the better debating, but if the app's in topical, then you can't say the app's did better debating because they're not actually affirming, which is another reason why it collapses competing interpretation in the first place. But the fact that it collapsed, even if you don't think it collapsed, the fact that reasonability just begs the question of his interpretation means you have to look to some sort of comparative offense debate. The fact that he's conceding the standard just supercharges the reason why you look to me even under reasonability. So Daniel's losing the framing debate of theory. Now, let's extend the nitty-gritty. Extending the interpretation that domestic violence is violence or abuse, and the printed word definition that domestic violence is violence or physical abuse directed towards your partner. This does preclude the non-intellectual arguments because it says that it is exclusively physical abuse, which means it's already doing the comparative analysis in